Welcome to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. I'm your co-host, Roshan Loungani, here with Adrian Nicholson. We're back with another great episode for you today. Adrian, how's your last couple weeks been?
They've been great, Roshan. Thanks for asking. And my topic today is actually a frequently asked question that I've been receiving a lot this year. The frequently asked question, or my topic today, is when I get asked, "Hey, Adrian, am I on track right now?" And as we know, this is very different for a lot of different people. When you say, "Am I on track?" it could be for maintaining your lifestyle, achieving a goal, retirement. It can be a number of different things depending on who the person is and what they want. So this is my topic today. When I get asked that question, sometimes I think people do look for a simple answer. Is it yes or is it no? Or just a quick fix or a quick just like evaluation, say, yeah, you're on track, whatever you're doing financially, it's great, keep it up. Or, hey, do you want to tweak a few things here or there, change some of these things up? So when I was thinking about that question, when I get asked that question, the first thing I do is I look at 8 categories. And that's what I'm going to be going over today with you, Roshan.
Oh, yeah, please. I'd love to hear those. I get this question all the time as well, so I'm looking forward to hearing the categories.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. And do you kind of get what I'm referring to, where somebody says, "Hey, Roshan, am I on track? How am I looking? Can you just fill me in real quick?" And sometimes that's like, there's a lot, especially us planners, that we think about that goes in our mind that we have to look at. So that's why I broke it down to 8 easy categories for me to look at, just to see if the person that's asking the question is in the right direction, if there's any things that they need to adjust, just moving forward.
Yeah, I think this is great. I literally got this question Friday afternoon. So, yes.
Yeah, I got this question a couple of weeks ago, so I'm like, all right, this is going to be a perfect for our podcast, for my bring your own topic. So the first category I have on here is family information. I think this is a good starting point. Whether you're single, married, you have a partner, kids, parents, whatever your situation is, just looking at the people in your life, it's a good starting point, because everybody has different financial responsibilities, goals, people to interact with every day. So that's just a good place just to start, just to see where you're on track, where you need to go, and all the people in your life as well, because that really can change a strategy that we recommend to you or how we run the numbers in your situation. So what do you think about that one, Roshan?
Yeah, so someone who is single and never been married will have a totally different uh, answer to the "Am I on track?" question than someone who is has young kids and needs to worry about their college planning as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And I like how you answered that with saying the answer is going to be different depending on the person. So that's why I had family information as the first category to look at, because again, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, am I on track for my goals or retirement or whatever they're trying to achieve," that answer is going to be different as you described it, based on the person, whatever their network looks like, their family situation. I think that's always it's a good starting point. So I'll move
Yes.
on to the next category. And this one are investments or assets. So this is another big one that we look at if people want to see if they're on track for their goals. So this is a very big one. I mean, I'm sure, like I said before, we can have a whole podcast on this one category alone. And this is a really driving force when it comes to being on track for people's goals. So you can break this down in a number of different ways when it comes to investments and assets. Like we mentioned, and probably going to say a lot on this topic, it's going to be different for a lot of different people out there. I'm sure some individuals, a lot of their assets could be tied up in stocks and bonds. Another individual out there could have a lot of their investments in real estate or tangible, collectible assets too. Or somebody out there could just have a lot of money in cash. That right there is something that we really need to examine if you want to determine whether you're on track or not, whether these investments support that track that you're on, that goal that you're trying to attain. If not, what are some changes that we can make? And ultimately, are you willing to make those changes, make those adjustments to achieve that? And that's another thing that we would look at as well in this case.
Yeah, definitely an important one. And when you talked about making it a whole episode, I think we have multiple episodes just focused on this one category.
Yeah, exactly. And also something that's top of mind when it comes to assets or investments as well is taxes, because that could be a very big thing to look at as well, depending on the type of investments. The person that has all their money in real estate is probably going to be concerned or worried about something else compared to somebody else that has all their money in cash, stocks, or bonds when it comes to taxes as well. Diversification is also another huge element as well. If you say, hey, let's just take a retiree, for instance, and all their money is just in stocks. So that's something, a conversation that we have to have. Hey, let's just say we run all through these categories, we run through all the numbers, and they are on track. And a lot of their money are in aggressive investments that move up and down a lot. So we could say, hey, yes, today you are on track for this goal, what you're trying to achieve, but the way your investments are structured, the way your assets look right now, that could change within the next day, week, month, year, whatever it is. So that's also something too that you have to consider that gets into it. So ultimately, I'm really hitting on the theme and the concepts here where you may be on track today, but that could change tomorrow. And that's why we have to really take a deep dive and examine these categories. And like I said in the beginning, it's not just an easy yes or no or a quick answer or sentence that gets involved here.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, two important concepts: taxes and diversification. Are those subcategories of the investments, or are those items 3 and 4 on your list of 8?
For our conversation, I just threw this in the investment category as well.
Oh,
I know that's a whole other category that we kept separate, but again, these are just 8 quick categories I look at if I can like sit down, evaluate, see somebody's situation, or how our viewers and listeners just really hone in and focus on this area so they can maybe pull 1 or 2 pieces to just look more into, just to see when we look at these 8 categories. Some people may say, hey, I'm very strong in this category, weak in this category, or haven't examined this category. So ultimately, that's where I find the value in this discussion as well, where if this is something that you haven't examined or looked at in a while, maybe now's the time to do it and take a look at it and see what you can do moving forward.
yeah, that's great. I have no challenges yet for you on these questions. These 2 you've got so far.
Yeah, I know this is something that we deal with on a daily basis. So there's a lot of different things that we can add to it. But for the next one, moving on, the next one I have on this list is property or where you're living. I mean, this is a big part of everybody's life: shelter, where they're living, whether you own a property or you're renting. This is something too that really will impact your plan, where you're headed as far as your goals and what you're trying to achieve. Whether you're living in the same place and you plan on living here for throughout the rest of your life, or you plan on relocating soon. Those 2 things are extremely important when it comes to planning and determining where you're at today. And that's also something too that requires a lot of planning and really does impact your expenses as well and the numbers that we run in our plan. If you're somebody that's a homeowner, it's going to look different versus somebody that's renting. If you're somebody that plans on moving or purchasing a property, that's also something too that you have to look at as well. And that goes back to what I said too originally in the investment category, where today you're on track, maybe the numbers look good, but if you make a significant change where you're living or if you move, that's something too where you're going to have to re-examine for the future.
Yeah, completely agree. That's a huge one with the property. And I feel like that's another one that could be its own episode, and I deal with frequently when people are talking about their retirement and possibly moving.
Mm-hmm. And I did keep this one separate from investments when people do think of in property, like that one example of the person I used that had all their investments in real estate. This category does really focus more on where you're living, the location you're at. Are you make any significant changes to? Because, like I said, any big moves like that just requires you to examine sometimes the whole plan and run the numbers again just to see if that has any significant impact or not. And if it does, that's where you have to look at all the other categories and see if everything's in line for you to achieve your goals.
Yeah.
So the following category I have on my list is income, and this is a big one. And again, this definitely varies by the individual. Whether you're somebody working in your high income earning years at a company, it's going to look a lot different than somebody that's retired and currently taking Social Security. But the income portion is just a very big thing that we look at and we plan for as well. Because this too also, as you mentioned earlier, Roshan, does fall into a tax category as well. Is your income, do you taking the proper steps to do it in a tax efficient way? What are the ways that you can manage your tax bracket? What income are you, how this might change in the future as well, something that you have to think about as well, because this is a very big when it comes to cash flow and cash flow management as well. How much money you have coming in the door, and are you managing that in the most optimal way as possible? Are you finding some areas where you can save more too, where that can help with your investments? Is all something that you have to consider when you're looking at this over the long term.
Yeah, completely agree with that one as well.
Is there anything you would want to add far as income planning? I'm sure you do that a lot, or any other recommendations or things that you have to look at as well, because this is one of the most important categories when it comes to people wanting to see if they're on track, if they need to make any adjustments just to ultimately achieve their financial goals.
Yeah, well, with the income one, and I'm waiting for your list to not give away anything late that you have potentially out there. But like you said, it's one of the big drivers. I was going to say are the expenses, what you do for your income, or look differently, what you're saving. So
Yes.
it also definitely lines right up with needing this information and needing to think this through when you're planning or when you're answering the question, am I on track?
Yeah. So you just mentioned it. That's the next category, expenses, which is a really driving force as well. When I mentioned cash flow, that goes hand in hand with income and expenses. How much money is coming in the door and how much money is going out is something too that you have to manage, because this may impact the investment side of your portfolio, where if your expenses out exceed your income, then you might have to withdraw from other places. And if that's something that you're comfortable with, then go right for it. But if that's something too that you ran the numbers and you're not comfortable with, that's something that you have to manage and plan for as well, so you don't have to withdraw from your investments if those are something that you want to grow for the long term and use later on, depending on what stage you are in your life.
Yep, agreed. We talk about this all the time when we're doing retirement planning, that expenses are the biggest driver, right? They have the biggest impact because they inflate over time, and they are there every year, I said year, but every month, every day in retirement.
Yeah, and I think this one too connects to two categories earlier that I talked about. The family one as well, depending on what your situation is, that can really be different for other individuals. And the property one as well, where you're living, different locations have different expense. Some higher than others is something that you really have to look at as well. So there's a lot that gets baked into there that you really need to consider if you want to determine where you're currently at financially.
Yeah, completely agree.
So the seventh category on my list is insurance, and this is a big one as well, because this can really help mitigate and maintain any other risk out there that you have, whether it's a liability, life insurance, any accidents. So this is something too that you really have to look at as well if you're properly insured, because you may be on track today, but it can take one risk out there, one accident, one liability that can really disrupt your plan. So this is something too that you have to consider.
Yeah, we definitely model that all the time. What are the insurance needs? What do you currently have? Are there's any shortages? What do you need to do about it? So yes, very important one.
Yeah, and ultimately too, this is what I talked about earlier as well, where if you don't have like the proper coverage, you might have to withdraw from your investments, or your expenses might have a really big increase, which will impact your cash flow. All these categories are really a web that connect, that really can be beneficial for you to just to understand and monitor and examine, because you might be strong in a couple areas, but if a couple areas you haven't been monitoring as well, could alter and impact your plan, and that's something that you need to keep on top of mind. Another insurance as well that people really need to focus on too as they get into retirement and get older is long-term care, which can be one of the most expensive ones out there. Proper planning can really be very crucial in this instance, because some of the costs as you get older do increase, and if that's something that you can mitigate now, can be very beneficial and can help you maintain your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Excellent. So I'm going to
long-term
move on to
costs.
my last category, and this one
Mhm.
is goals. I mean, this is one of the most important thing you got to look on, because when you talk about, am I on track? What are you on track for? And that's ultimately the goals, where I mentioned before, maintaining the lifestyle you want, retiring at a certain age, or just buying a property, whatever your goals are, how big or how small they are. That's something too that all these categories really connect in the middle of the web. Is just, are you on track for your goals, and how are these categories impacting whether you're on track for or not? And that's something that you really have to focus on and reevaluate, because again, you want to be doing it in the most optimized, most efficient way possible. And if you're not, just understanding what adjustments that you can make and what changes that you can make and how you monitor it is ultimately what we're trying to discuss and talk about here today.
Yeah, and I know you didn't rank these in order of importance or anything, but I would have said goals first, because if the question is, am I on track? On track for what?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then knowing the goal. So that's part of the reason I was holding back a little bit. I didn't want to give away what you had on there, or jump there ahead of you. But yes, you've got to figure out where you're going, what that ultimate goal is, and then every other category you mentioned were, to me, data inputs to help make sure you can then achieve that goal.
Yeah, and I mean, we had a lot of different episodes focusing on each one of these categories. We've also done, it was a while back, a couple of years ago, we did battle the plan episodes, where we take a scenario and we run the numbers just to see, are they on track for whatever goals we created, and what adjustments that we'd make over time. And that's a really helpful episode, where it can really see how all these different levers, how the planning process really works for you to achieve your goals, and just see if you're on track or not. And that's something that I think is very valuable for our listeners and viewers today.
I agree. As you were going through this, I was just thinking of season two, that we did, where it was all about building your own financial plan, and it gave away what we do and how we help build that plan. And a lot these areas you mentioned, the majority of them are the building blocks of the data that we look for in crafting that financial plan.
Yeah, exactly. And each one of these categories could really be an opportunity. If you're somebody out there that's listening now and you say, hey, maybe I'm not feeling like I'm on track, or maybe I do need to make adjustments, looking at these 8 categories, one of these categories could be a good opportunity to get you back on track, or make you more efficient, or optimize your plan, which is something that can really compound and help you out over the time, just to help you achieve those goals.
Yes, yep. And I think if you have not built a plan, I would highly recommend it. If you need help building a financial plan, feel free to reach out to me or to Adrian, and we can definitely help you. All our contact information is there. And if you have done a plan, I would recommend you review it and update it if you haven't in a while. So uh, that's how you get to answering the question of, am I on track?
Yeah, of course. And ultimately, too, what I want to drive home is the fact that, these categories can be complex, but just really hone in and focus on the areas that are important to you, and ask the right questions, and really, sometimes just dive deep and really just run the numbers is just extremely important, because that's just something that's very valuable, can help you achieve your goals and what you need to focus on. Where sometimes, asking the wrong question, or looking for a simple answer, as far as, oh yes, you are on track, there's nothing to worry about, or no, you're not, really pull back behind the layers and just really see why that is, and question it more, because it's very valuable. And just starting earlier today, or starting as soon as possible, can be a good change and help you get pointed in the right direction.
I think that was great. Very good. And I think that'll be very helpful for people that are listening and wanting to figure out if they're on track. If that's a question that they have currently, if it's not, I'm sure it's one they've had in the past or will in the future. So, because we
Yeah,
hear
and
it
I
just that frequently.
definitely think we should do another Battle the Plan episodes in the future as well. I think that's just a great way for us to put like this episode, and just really show how that process works, and be very valuable, because just where we are at today is a lot different than when we first recorded that first episode a couple of years ago. So we can maybe have more of an up to date one that I'm looking forward to.
I think that's a great idea. We'll definitely revisit this topic in the future, I'm sure. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us. It's been a great episode of the Retirement Lifestyle Show. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Please like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, take control, and achieve your goals.
Schedule a conversation with Roshan, Adrian, or Erik today at retirementlifestyleshow.com. Roshan and Erik are certified financial planner practitioners. They, along with Adrian, are investment advisor representatives and serve clients across the U.S. with financial planning and investment advice through Arete Wealth. If you found this show helpful, gained knowledge, or enjoyed the time you spent with us, tell your friends and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others discover the show. To access our show notes, to download any of the tools mentioned in today's podcast, to ask us a question, or to schedule a conversation, go to retirementlifestyleshow.com. All opinions expressed by podcast hosts and guests are solely their own. While based on information they believe is reliable, neither Arete Wealth nor its affiliates warrants its completeness or accuracy, nor do their opinions reflect the opinion of Arete Wealth. This podcast is for general informational purposes only and should not be regarded as specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Before making any decisions, consult a professional. The show hosts offer investment advice through Arete Wealth Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and securities through Arete Wealth Management, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC, and NFA. Finally, our music is The Chance by Jason Shaw and Audionautics. It's part of the YouTube audio library, and it's licensed under a Creative Commons license. I am Ray Voices. Thank you for listening.